Rain hammers against Manhattan's neon-soaked streets as Serena Vale scrubs grease from her bleeding hands in a suffocating kitchen, drowning in her father's medical debt. One storm-drenched night, a terrifyingly calm stranger with amber eyes sits in the dining room, watching her like prey. By morning, her entire life will be ripped apart. Lucien DeMarco, ruthless Mafia heir, has been hunting her for months. He offers her a dream job, a fortune, and salvation. But she doesn't know the truth yet. She was never random. She was chosen. For revenge. This is the story of a woman who fell in love with the man who destroyed her life before they ever met. Drop a like, comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels, and stay until the end, because nothing about this love story is what it seems. The kitchen at Bella Rosa smelled like burning garlic and someone else's dream. Serena Vale stood at the industrial sink with her hands submerged in scalding water, scrubbing carbonized residue from a sauté pan that would never come clean. Her fingers were raw. The cuts on her knuckles, souvenirs from a careless moment with a mandolin 3 days ago, had reopened, threading pink into the greasy dishwater. She didn't stop. Stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering that she used to be more than this. 6 years ago, she'd been the youngest student accepted into the Culinary Institute's advanced program. She'd had a portfolio, a future. Restaurants in Paris and Tokyo had responded to her emails. Then her mother died. Her father's lungs began to collapse, and medical bills became the only recipe Serena knew how to follow. Now she was 26, invisible, and dying one dinner shift at a time. The kitchen door swung open behind her. Serena didn't turn. She knew the sound of Marco's cheap dress shoes. "Hey, dishwasher girl," Marco said. He was the head chef, though his only talent was yelling and taking credit for other people's work. "We got a VIP situation out front. They want someone to bring out the osso buco personally. You're up." Serena's hand stilled in the water. "I'm not front of house staff." "You are tonight. Angela called in sick and I'm not dealing with this. Table 7, don't embarrass me." She turned, water dripping from her forearms. Marco was already walking away, barking orders at a line cook who'd overcooked a risotto. Serena looked down at herself. Her white kitchen shirt was stained with tomato sauce and sweat. Her hair, dark, thick, perpetually escaping whatever tie she used, was a disaster. She dried her hands on a towel that smelled like bleach and defeat. The dining room at Bella Rosa was designed to intimidate. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths so pristine they looked like they'd never been touched. The kind of place where a single entree cost more than Serena made in a week. She moved through it like a ghost, carrying the plated osso buco on a silver tray, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Table 7 sat in the center of the room, and the man sitting there made her stop breathing. He was somewhere in his early 30s, dressed in a black suit so perfectly tailored it looked like it had been sewn onto his body. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes the color of amber catching firelight. But it wasn't his looks that froze her in place. It was the way he held himself, utterly still, utterly calm, like a predator who'd already calculated every exit in the room. 3 men flanked him. They weren't eating, they weren't talking, they were watching. Serena's hands trembled as she approached the table. The man's gaze lifted, locked onto her, and didn't let go. She set the plate down in front of him with as much grace as she could manage. Osso buco, braised veal shank with gremolata. He didn't look at the food. He looked at her. "You didn't make this," he said. His voice was low, controlled, and it cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant like a blade. Serena blinked. No, I work in the back." "Doing what?" "Dishes. Prep work." "You're a chef." It wasn't a question. It was a statement delivered with absolute certainty, and it made her skin prickle. "I was," she said carefully. "Not anymore." The man leaned back in his chair, still watching her with that unnerving intensity. One of the men beside him shifted, and Serena noticed the bulge beneath his jacket. Her throat went dry. "What's your name?" the man asked. She shouldn't answer. Every instinct told her to walk away. But something about the way he asked, like he already knew and was just testing her, made lying feel impossible. "Serena." "Serena," he repeated, tasting the syllables. "Do you enjoy washing dishes, Serena?" Her jaw tightened. "It pays the bills." "Barely." The word landed like a slap. She stared at him, heat rising in her chest. Excuse me? You're surviving, he said. Not living. There's a difference. You don't know anything about me. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I know more than you think. Before she could respond, one of the other diners, a woman dripping in diamonds, raised her hand, summoning Serena with the kind of casual entitlement that made her want to scream. She turned away from the man at table 7, her pulse racing, and spent the next 20 minutes refilling water glasses and pretending she didn't feel his eyes on her the entire time. When she finally returned to the kitchen, Marco was screaming at someone about undercooked chicken. Serena slipped past him back to her station and plunged her hands into the sink. The water was cold now. She didn't care. She scrubbed until her arms ached. The shift ended at midnight. Serena changed out of her grease-stained shirt in the cramped employee bathroom, pulling on a faded denim jacket that had been her mother's. The rain outside hadn't stopped. If anything, it had gotten worse. She didn't have an umbrella. She didn't have a lot of things. The subway station was 6 blocks away. She kept her head down, her hands shoved into her pockets, and walked fast. The streets were emptier at this hour, populated mostly by taxis and the occasional drunk stumbling out of a bar. Serena had learned to navigate Manhattan's night hours with a specific kind of alertness. Not paranoid, but prepared. Halfway to the station, she heard the car. It was the engine that caught her attention first. Low, expensive, purring like something alive. She glanced over her shoulder and saw it, a black luxury sedan with tinted windows, rolling slowly down the street behind her, following her. Her heartbeat spiked. She turned the corner sharply, cutting through a side street she normally avoided. The car followed. Serena's hands curled into fists. She thought about running, but running would make her look weak, afraid. And she'd spent the last 6 years refusing to look like either of those things, even when she was. The car pulled up beside her and stopped. The back window rolled down. It was him. The man from table 7 sat in the back seat, looking at her with that same unreadable expression. Up close, in the low light, he was even more unsettling. Beautiful in a way that felt dangerous, like a painting of something poisonous. "Get in," he said. Serena took a step back. "I'm fine walking." "It's raining, you're soaked, and this neighborhood isn't safe at this hour." "I've been walking through this neighborhood for 6 years. I think I'll survive." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "You're stubborn. You're following me." "Yes." The admission was so casual, so unapologetic, that it stunned her into silence. He didn't try to deny it, didn't make excuses. He just watched her, waiting. "Why?" she finally asked. "Because I want to talk to you." "We already talked. Not the way I need to." Serena's pulse hammered in her throat. Every rational part of her brain screamed at her to walk away, call someone, run. But there was something in his voice, something almost honest, that made her hesitate. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Lucien DeMarco." The name meant nothing to her. She shook her head. "That doesn't answer my question." "Get in the car, Serena. I'll take you home. We'll talk. And if you still want me to leave you alone after that, I will." She didn't believe him, but she was exhausted, drenched, and so tired of fighting every single moment of her life that, for once, she made a reckless choice. She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and something faintly citrus. The seat was warm. Serena sat as far from Lucien as the space allowed, her back pressed against the door, her hands clenched in her lap. The driver, silent, stone-faced, pulled away from the curb without a word. Lucien didn't speak immediately. He just looked at her, and the weight of his attention made her want to crawl out of her skin. "You live at 428 West 47th Street, he said finally. "Third floor. Studio apartment. Rent is $1,850 a month, which you're 2 months behind on. Your father is in a long-term care facility in Queens, stage 4 pulmonary fibrosis. The medical bills are destroying you." Serena's blood turned to ice. "How do you know that?" "I know everything about you." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're going to get right now." She reached for the door handle. "Stop the car." Lucien didn't move. "You're going to want to hear what I have to say." "I don't want anything from you." "Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet." The car turned onto her street and stopped in front of her building. Serena shoved the door open and stumbled out into the rain. Lucien followed, moving with an ease that made it clear he wasn't afraid of getting wet. He caught her arm, not hard, but firm enough to stop her. "Let go of me," she said. "Listen to me, Serena." "Why should I?" "Because I'm about to change your life." She yanked her arm free, glaring at him. "I don't need saving. I'm not offering to save you." His voice was calm, controlled, but there was something underneath it, something sharp. "I'm offering you an opportunity. A real one. Not scrubbing dishes for a man who treats you like garbage. Not surviving. Living." "Doing what?" "Running a kitchen." The words hit her like a physical blow. Serena stared at him, rain streaming down her face, and for a moment she couldn't speak. "I'm opening a restaurant," Lucien continued. "High-end Italian, meatpacking district. I need an executive chef, someone with vision, talent, fire. You have all three." "You don't know me. I know enough." "This is insane." "Maybe." He stepped closer, and she realized just how tall he was, how much space he took up without even trying. "But it's real. The salary is $200,000 a year, plus a percentage of profits. I'll cover your father's medical expenses. I'll pay your rent, all of it." Serena's knees nearly gave out. "Why?" "Because I need the best, and you are." "I wash dishes." "You're wasting your life washing dishes." His amber eyes pinned her in place. "I'm giving you a chance to stop." She wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him to go to hell, but the number echoed in her head. $200,000. Her father's medical expenses. Rent, food, air, the ability to breathe without drowning. "What's the catch?" she asked. Lucien smiled. It was the first time she'd seen him do it, and it was terrifying. "There's always a catch, Serena, but you'll have to say yes to find out what it is." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. He held it out to her. "Think about it," he said. "You have 24 hours. Then he turned and walked back to the car, leaving her standing in the rain, shaking, with a business card clutched in her hand and the feeling that she'd just made a deal with something far more dangerous than she understood. The card had a single phone number on it. No name, no address, just a number. And the terrifying certainty that if she called it, there would be no going back. Bashenk. Serena didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, a futon she'd bought secondhand 3 years ago, and stared at the business card until the paper started to blur. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The city sounds filtered in through her thin walls. Sirens, shouting, a car alarm that wouldn't quit. Her phone sat beside her, screen dark. She picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. $200,000, her father's medical bills. A kitchen, her kitchen. But Lucien DeMarco's face kept surfacing in her mind. The way he'd known things about her that no stranger should know. The way he'd followed her, the way he'd looked at her, not like a person, but like a target. She pulled out her laptop and typed his name into the search bar. The results were sparse. No social media, no interviews, just a handful of mentions buried in business filings and charity event guest lists. Old money. Real estate holdings, a name that appeared in the background of New York's elite social circles but never at the center. And then, buried 6 pages deep, a single photograph from a gala 3 years ago. Lucien stood beside an older man with silver hair and a smile that looked like it cost someone their soul. The caption identified the older man as Vincent DeMarco, philanthropist and businessman. Serena clicked on Vincent's name. The articles that came up were cleaner, polished. But if you knew how to read between the lines, and Serena had spent enough time in New York to know, the picture became clearer. Donations to political campaigns, investments in construction and waste management, ties to unions and industries where cash moved in the dark. She closed the laptop and pressed her palms against her eyes. Mafia. The words sat in her chest like a stone. She should walk away. Delete the number. Pretend tonight never happened. But when she opened her eyes, all she saw was her father's face. The oxygen tubes. The beeping machines. The way he'd looked at her last week and said, "You don't have to keep doing this, sweetheart. I've had a good life." As if giving up was the kindest thing he could do for her. Serena picked up the phone. She dialed the number before she could stop herself. It rang once. "I knew you'd call." Lucien's voice was warm, almost pleased. I haven't said yes yet. But you will. Serena's grip tightened on the phone. I want to see the restaurant first, and I want everything in writing, contract, salary, medical coverage, all of it. Of course. And I want to know why you chose me, the real reason. There was a pause, long enough that Serena almost thought he'd hung up. Tomorrow, Lucian said finally, I'll send a car at noon. Wear something comfortable. You're going to be on your feet for a while. Lucien. Get some sleep, Serena. You're going to need it. The line went dead. Serena sat there, phone still pressed to her ear, and wondered if she'd just signed away more than she realized. The car arrived at noon exactly. Same black sedan, same silent driver. This time, Serena was ready. She'd dressed in jeans, boots, and a sweater that didn't have any stains. Her hair was pulled back. She'd even put on mascara, though she wasn't sure why. The drive took 20 minutes. The meatpacking district had transformed over the last decade from industrial wasteland into one of Manhattan's trendiest neighborhoods. Cobblestone streets, converted warehouses, restaurants with month-long waiting lists. The car stopped in front of a building that looked like it used to be a meat processing plant. Exposed brick, steel beams, massive windows that let in sheets of natural light. Lucien was waiting outside. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look less like a businessman and more like something out of a European fashion magazine. When he saw her, he smiled, just a flicker, but it was there. You came, he said. I'm here to see the restaurant, not you. Fair enough. He led her inside. The space stole the breath from her lungs. The dining room was still under construction, tables stacked against one wall, drop cloths covering the floor. But Serena could see the vision. High ceilings with exposed ductwork painted matte black, Edison bulb chandeliers, a wine wall made of glass and steel. It was industrial and elegant at the same time, rough and refined. And then Lucian opened the door to the kitchen. Serena stopped walking. The kitchen was a cathedral, marble countertops, stainless steel appliances that gleamed like they'd been forged by someone who understood worship. A wood-fired oven built into the brick wall. Prep stations with enough space for a full brigade. Overhead pot racks. A spice library that looked like it belonged in a museum. It's yours, Lucian said quietly, if you want it. Serena walked forward slowly, her fingers brushing over the cool marble. She opened one of the industrial refrigerators. Empty, but spotless. She turned on one of the burners. Blue flame leapt to life instantly, responsive, perfect. Why? She asked, her voice cracking. Lucien moved to stand beside her. Because you deserve it. That's not a reason. It's the only one that matters. She turned to face him. He was closer than she'd expected, and for a moment she saw something flicker across his face. Grief. Hunger. Something raw and unfinished. What do you want from me? She whispered. I want you to cook, he said. I want you to build something here. I want you to take this kitchen and make it legendary. And in return, you work for me, you trust me, and you don't ask questions you're not ready to hear the answers to. Serena's heart slammed against her ribs. That's not a fair deal. No, Lucian agreed. It's not. Then why should I take it? He reached out and brushed a strand of hair away from her face. The touch was so gentle it startled her. Because you're already drowning, Serena, and I'm offering you a way to breathe. She should pull away, should run, should do anything except stand there, letting a man she didn't know touch her like he had the right. But God help her, she was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of losing, tired of being invisible. I'll do it, she heard herself say. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Satisfaction, possession, relief. Good, he said softly. And Serena realized, too late, that she'd just walked into a cage she'd never be able to escape. The contract arrived the next morning in a leather portfolio delivered by a man who didn't make eye contact. Serena sat at her kitchen table, a folding card table she'd bought at a bodega, and read every word twice. The language was clean, almost too clean. Executive chef. Annual salary $200,000 paid bi-weekly. Medical coverage for immediate family members, pre-existing conditions included. Housing stipend. Performance bonuses tied to revenue benchmarks. It was everything Lucien had promised. She signed it with a pen that was running out of ink. 3 days later, she walked into Bellarosa for her final shift. Marco was in the back, screaming at a prep cook about julienne vegetables. Serena didn't say goodbye. She left her grease-stained apron folded on the counter and walked out the service entrance into the alley where she used to smoke cigarettes she couldn't afford. She didn't look back. The apartment Lucien provided was in Chelsea, 14th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, hardwood floors, a kitchen with appliances that actually worked, a bed that wasn't a futon. Serena stood in the empty living room the first night and cried so hard she had to sit on the floor. She didn't tell her father, not yet, not until she figured out what the hell she'd actually agreed to. The restaurant, still unnamed, opened its doors for soft testing 2 weeks later. Not to the public, just to Lucien's associates. Men in expensive suits who spoke in low voices and watched Serena like she was an experiment they weren't sure would succeed. She cooked like her life depended on it. Handmade tagliatelle with wild boar ragu. Branzino roasted whole with fennel and blood oranges. Panna cotta so delicate it trembled on the spoon. Every plate that came back to the kitchen was clean, scraped, devoured. Lucien stood in the corner of the dining room, watching her through the open kitchen window. He didn't eat, didn't speak, just watched. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in 6 years. After service, Serena's sous chef, a young guy named Matteo with tattoos up both arms and a work ethic that rivaled her own, grabbed a beer from the walk-in and collapsed onto a prep counter. "That was insane," he said. "Good insane, but insane." Serena wiped down her station, her hands moving on autopilot. "We're not even close to ready for a real opening." "You're a perfectionist." "I'm a realist." Matteo grinned. "Boss man seems happy." Serena glanced through the kitchen window. Lucien was still there, now speaking quietly with one of his men. The man nodded, said something back, and left. Lucien's gaze drifted back to the kitchen, back to her. "He's hard to read," Serena said carefully. "That's one way to put it." Matteo took a swig of beer. "You know what people say about him, right?" Serena's hand stilled on the counter. "What do they say?" "That he's connected, like really connected. DeMarco family, you know." "I don't know." Matteo lowered his voice. "Organized crime. His old man runs half the construction unions in the city. Lucien's supposed to be the heir, the smart one, keeps everything clean on paper but dirty underneath." Serena's chest tightened. "And you're telling me this now? I figured you knew. I didn't ask. Maybe you should have." She turned to face him. "Does it bother you, working here?" Matteo shrugged. "Money's good. Kitchen's a dream. And honestly, I've worked in worse places for worse people. At least this guy pays on time and doesn't scream at the staff." He stood, tossed the empty bottle into recycling, and headed for the door. "Just be careful, chef. Guys like Lucien DeMarco don't do anything without a reason." After he left, Serena stood alone in the kitchen, the overhead lights humming, and felt the weight of something she couldn't name pressing down on her ribs. She turned off the lights and walked into the dining room. Lucien was still there. "You should go home," he said without looking at her. "You've been on your feet for 12 hours. So have you." "I'm used to it." Serena crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Why are you still here?" "I wanted to make sure everything went smoothly." "It did. I know." He finally turned to face her, and the expression on his face was unreadable. "You're extraordinary, Serena. The way you move in that kitchen, the way you taste something and know exactly what it needs. It's rare." "You say that like you've seen a lot of kitchens." "I have." He stood, closing the distance between them with slow, deliberate steps. "My mother was a cook, not a chef." "A cook?" "She worked in a small trattoria in Naples before she came to New York. She used to say that food was the only honest language left in the world." It was the first personal thing Lucien had ever told her. Serena didn't know how to respond, so she just listened. "She died when I was 16, he continued. "Car accident, drunk driver. The man who killed her got 6 months because someone gave him an alibi that didn't hold up, but couldn't be disproven." Serena's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." But his voice carried a weight that said it wasn't. "Not really. I built this place for her. I named it after her. Ilaria. That was her name. It's beautiful. She would have loved you. The words landed between them like something fragile. Serena felt her pulse quicken. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Lucian stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne, something dark and woody. She would have seen what I see. And what's that? Someone who's been beaten down but refuses to break. Serena's breath hitched. You don't know me, Lucian. I know enough. You keep saying that, but you don't. His hand came up, fingers brushing against her jaw. The touch was feather light, but it sent electricity racing down her spine. Then let me learn. She should step back, should put distance between them, should remember that this man was dangerous, that he'd orchestrated her entire life without her consent, that nothing about this was normal. But his eyes were so sad, and she was so tired of being alone. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably. I work for you. I know. I don't even like you. Lucian smiled. It was small, barely there, but real. Liar. And then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, like he'd been holding back for weeks and finally couldn't anymore. Serena's hands came up to his chest, intending to push him away, but instead they curled into the fabric of his shirt and pulled him closer. She kissed him back. It was reckless and stupid and felt like falling off a cliff she hadn't seen coming. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Serena's world had tilted sideways. Go home, Lucian said, his voice rough. Before I do something we'll both regret. Serena didn't argue. She grabbed her jacket and left, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She didn't sleep that night either. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of prep work, menu revisions, and stolen moments that felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Lucien was everywhere and nowhere. He'd disappear for days, unreachable, his phone going straight to voicemail. Then he'd show up at the restaurant at midnight, looking exhausted and wired, and sit at the bar while Serena finished breaking down the kitchen. They didn't talk about the kiss, but the tension between them was a living thing, coiled tight and ready to snap. One night, after a particularly brutal service where everything that could go wrong did, Serena found Lucien in his office on the second floor. The door was open. He sat behind a massive oak desk, staring at a laptop screen with an expression that looked like controlled fury. Bad night? She asked from the doorway. He glanced up. You could say that. Want to talk about it? Not particularly. Serena stepped inside, closing the door behind her. You look like you want to hit something. I do. What's stopping you? Paperwork. He gestured at the laptop with disgust. The boring parts of running an empire no one warns you about. Empire, Serena repeated. That's one way to describe it. Lucien's eyes narrowed. You've been asking questions. Should I not? Depends on whether you want honest answers. She sat down in the chair across from him, crossing her legs. Try me. He studied her for a long moment, then closed the laptop. My family's been in New York for 3 generations. My grandfather started in construction. Legitimate work, mostly. My father expanded, waste management, union contracts, real estate development, some of it clean, some of it less so. And you? I inherited the mess and tried to make it cleaner. Doesn't always work. Why keep doing it? Because walking away means someone worse takes over. And because it's the only thing I know how to do. Serena leaned forward. That's not true. You built this restaurant. You could build something else, something that doesn't come with body counts and federal investigations. Lucien's jaw tightened. You think it's that simple? I think you're scared. Of what? That if you let go, you'll lose the only connection you have left to your family, to your mother. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Lucien stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me I'm wrong. He didn't. Instead, he crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed her face in both hands, and kissed her hard enough to bruise. Serena gasped against his mouth, her hands fisting in his hair. This wasn't like the first kiss. This was raw, uncontrolled, desperate. He backed her against the wall, his body pressed against hers, and she let him because some part of her wanted this, wanted him, even though it was insane. "Tell me to stop," he muttered against her lips. "No." His hand slid down her sides, gripping her hips. "Serena, don't." She pulled him closer, her nails digging into his shoulders. "Don't think, just—" He kissed her again, swallowing whatever she'd been about to say. They stayed like that for minutes that felt like hours, tangled together until Lucien finally pulled back, breathing hard, his forehead resting against hers. "This can't happen," he said. "I know. I'm not good for you." "I know that too." "Then why?" "Because I don't care." And the terrifying thing was, she meant it. Lucien stepped back, running a hand through his hair. He looked wrecked, undone, human. "Go home," he said quietly. "Lucien, please." So she did. But the next night he was waiting for her after service, and the night after that, and the one after that. They fell into a rhythm that felt like inevitability. He'd show up, they'd talk. Sometimes they'd kiss. Sometimes they'd just sit in silence, existing in each other's orbit, and that felt like enough. Serena knew it was dangerous, knew she was getting in too deep, but she couldn't stop. 2 months after the restaurant opened to rave reviews, lines out the door, reservations booked solid for 3 months, critics calling Serena a culinary visionary, her father's doctor called. "We need to talk about next steps," Dr. Patel said. "The treatment's working, but we're looking at long-term care options. There's a clinical trial at Mount Sinai that could extend his quality of life significantly, but it's expensive. Insurance won't cover it." Serena's stomach dropped. "How expensive?" $300,000. Up front." She hung up and stared at her phone until the screen went dark. That night, she told Lucien, they were in his car. He'd started driving her home most nights, and the city lights streaked past the windows in blurred neon lines. "I'll take care of it," he said immediately. "No." "Serena, I'm not a charity case." "I never said you were." "Then what am I?" She turned to face him, her voice cracking. "What is this? What are we doing?" Lucien's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I don't know." "That's not good enough." "It's all I have." "Then it's not enough." He pulled the car over, tires screeching slightly, and turned to her. "You want the truth? Fine, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be with someone without destroying them. Everyone I've ever cared about either leaves or dies, and I can't—" His voice broke. "I can't do that to you." Serena's heart shattered. "So what? You just keep me at arm's length forever?" "If it keeps you safe, yes. I don't want to be safe. I want to be with you." "You don't know what you're asking for." "Yes, I do." Lucien looked at her like she was something precious and breakable. Then he reached out and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I'll pay for the trial," he whispered into her hair. "I'll pay for all of it. Not because you're a charity case, because I—" He stopped. Couldn't finish the sentence, but Serena heard it anyway. The trial started 2 weeks later. Her father's condition stabilized. The restaurant continued to thrive. And Serena let herself believe for just a moment that maybe things could work out. Then she found the file. It was late, past 2 in the morning. Lucien had brought her back to his apartment, a penthouse in the Upper East Side, that looked like it belonged in a magazine, after a charity event where she'd been introduced as the brilliant chef behind Ilaria. She'd felt like an imposter in a borrowed dress, shaking hands with people who had more money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. Lucien had excused himself to take a phone call. "Make yourself comfortable," he'd said. "I'll just be a few minutes." Serena wandered through the apartment, taking in the modern furniture, the abstract art on the walls, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. She found herself in his study, dark wood, leather chairs, shelves lined with books that actually looked red, and a file cabinet in the corner, slightly ajar. She shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity was a disease, and she was already infected. The first drawer held business documents, contracts, property deeds. Nothing interesting. The second drawer was locked. The third opened easily. Inside was a single folder. Her name was written on the tab in neat handwriting. Serena's blood turned cold. She pulled it out with shaking hands and opened it. Photographs. Dozens of them. Serena leaving Bellarosa. Serena walking to the subway. Serena visiting her father. Time-stamped, dated, going back months before they'd ever met. Financial records, her bank statements, her lease agreement, her father's medical bills, notes in the margins, observations, details about her schedule, her habits, her life. And then, at the bottom, a police report. The paper was old, the ink faded. She had to squint to read it. Motor vehicle accident. Victim: Ilaria DeMarco, deceased at scene. Driver: Marcus Brennan. Blood alcohol content, 0.12%. Witness statement provided by... The name made her stop breathing. Robert Vale. Her father. Her father had been the witness. Her father had given the alibi that let the drunk driver walk away with a slap on the wrist. Serena's hand started shaking so badly the papers fluttered to the floor. The door opened behind her. "Serena." Lucien's voice was calm. Too calm. She turned slowly, the police report still clutched in one hand. "What is this?" He looked at the scattered papers, then at her face, and something in his expression cracked. "It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because it looks like you've been stalking me for months. It looks like you orchestrated this entire thing. The job, the apartment, my father's treatment, all of it." "Serena, my father gave the alibi." Her voice was shaking now, tears streaming down her face. "He's the reason the man who killed your mother got away with it. And you knew. You knew the whole time." Lucien took a step toward her. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you hunted me down for revenge? That everything you've done, everything you've said, was just part of some sick plan to destroy me?" "No." "Then what?" She was screaming now, her voice breaking. "What was I, Lucien? A pawn? A target? What?" "You were supposed to be," he said quietly. "At first." The admission knocked the air from her lungs. "I spent years looking for the man who gave that alibi," Lucien continued, his voice flat, empty. "When I finally found out it was your father, I wanted him to suffer. I wanted to take everything from him the way he took everything from me. And then I found you, struggling, drowning, the perfect way to make him watch his daughter self-destruct." Serena couldn't breathe. "But then I met you," Lucien said, and his voice cracked. "And you weren't what I expected. You were fierce and stubborn and so goddamn talented. It hurt to watch you waste it. And somewhere along the way, the plan changed. I changed. I fell in love with you, Serena. I fell in love with you, and I didn't know how to stop. You should have told me. I know. You should have told me the truth from the beginning. Would you have stayed if I had?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. Lucien crossed the room, dropping to his knees in front of her. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I've destroyed everything. But please, Serena, please just..." She slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the study. Lucien's head turned with the impact, but he didn't move, didn't defend himself. "I trusted you," Serena whispered. "I gave you everything. I know. And it was all a lie. Not all of it." He looked up at her, and his eyes were wet. "The restaurant, your talent, the way I feel about you, none of that was a lie. How am I supposed to believe you? You're not." He stood slowly, backing away. "You're supposed to leave. You're supposed to walk out that door and never look back. Because that's what I deserve." Serena stood there trembling, her entire world collapsing around her. She wanted to scream, wanted to break something, wanted to hurt him the way he'd hurt her. Instead, she ran. She grabbed her purse, her phone, and ran out of the apartment, down the elevator, into the street. The cold night air hit her like a slap. She kept running until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, collapsing onto a bench in Central Park. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who might have answers. Her father's phone rang 4 times before he picked up, his voice groggy. "Serena, it's 3 a.m. What's wrong?" "Tell me about Ilaria DeMarco," she said. The line went silent. "Dad, tell me. How do you know that name? Just tell me." He was quiet for so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, finally, he spoke. "I met her 23 years ago. She was married to Vincent DeMarco, trapped in a nightmare of a marriage. He was violent, controlling. She was terrified. And His voice broke. "I was weak. We had an affair. It lasted 6 months. Then she ended it, said she had to protect her son. That Vincent would kill us both if he found out. Serena's vision blurred. The night she died, her father continued, the driver who hit her was drunk, but he was also one of Vincent's men. I knew if I told the truth about the alibi, that it was fabricated, Vincent would know I'd been involved with Ilaria, and he would have killed me, killed you, killed your mother. So I lied. I gave a statement that couldn't be disproven but was weak enough that the driver only got 6 months. You let a murderer walk free. I saved my family. You destroyed his. I know. Her father's voice was hollow. I've carried that guilt every day since. And I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Serena hung up. She sat on the bench until the sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and she realized that everything she thought she knew had been built on lies, grief, and the sins of people who died before she ever had a chance to understand them. When she finally stood and walked back to her apartment, the one Lucian had paid for, in the building Lucian owned, she knew one thing for certain. There was no going back. Serena didn't go to the restaurant for 3 days. She called Matteo and told him she had food poisoning. He didn't question it. The kitchen ran without her because she'd built a team strong enough to survive her absence, and that fact made her want to scream. Everything Lucian had given her, the kitchen, the staff, the reputation, was still there, still functioning, still suffocating her with its existence. She spent those 3 days in her apartment, staring at the walls Lucien paid for, sleeping in the bed Lucian bought, eating nothing because everything tasted like ash. Her phone rang constantly. Lucian's name lit up the screen 40, 50 times a day. She never answered. On the 4th day, there was a knock at her door. Serena opened it, expecting Lucien. It was a woman, mid-50s, elegant in a way that suggested old money and good breeding. Dark hair streaked with silver, pulled back into a tight chignon. Eyes the same amber color as Lucien's. Serena Vale, the woman said. It wasn't a question. Who are you? My name is Isabel DeMarco, Lucien's aunt. May I come in? Every instinct told Serena to slam the door. Instead, she stepped aside. Isabel walked into the apartment with the assurance of someone who'd spent her entire life in spaces far grander than this. She looked around, taking in the sparse furniture, the unpacked boxes Serena still hadn't dealt with, the general emptiness of a life that had been uprooted too quickly. He's been calling you, Isabel said, turning to face her. I know. You're not answering. I'm aware. Isabel's expression was unreadable. He told me what happened, the file, your father, all of it. Serena's hands curled into fists. Then you know why I'm not taking his calls? I do. And I also know you deserve the whole truth, not just the version my nephew gave you. There's more? There's always more. Isabel sat down on the couch without being invited, crossing her legs. Lucien told you his mother had an affair with your father. That's true. What he didn't tell you, what he doesn't know, is that Ilaria was planning to leave Vincent. She had divorce papers drawn up. She'd contacted a lawyer. She was going to take Lucien and disappear. Serena's breath caught. What stopped her? Vincent found out, not about the affair, about the divorce. 2 days before she died, he confronted her. Beat her so badly she couldn't leave the house. Lucien saw the bruises. She told him she'd fallen down the stairs. The image made Serena's stomach turn. The night of the accident, Isabel continued, her voice flat, Ilaria wasn't driving to the grocery store like the police report said. She was driving to meet your father. He was going to help her disappear, get her and Lucien somewhere safe. But Vincent knew. He always knew everything. You think Vincent orchestrated the accident? I don't think. I know. Isabel's eyes were hard. The drunk driver was one of Vincent's men, Marcus Brennan. He was paid to run her off the road and make it look like an accident. Your father's false alibi wasn't about protecting himself. It was about protecting you and your mother, because Vincent made it very clear that if Robert testified, your entire family would be wiped off the map. Serena felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Lucien doesn't know this. No. Vincent made sure of that. He let Lucien believe it was a random tragedy. Let him carry that grief without direction, without blame, until Lucien was old enough to start asking questions. Then Vincent fed him the story about the false alibi, pointed him at your father like a loaded gun. Why are you telling me this? Isabel stood, smoothing her skirt. Because my nephew is about to make a mistake that will destroy him. And despite everything, I still care about the boy Ilaria raised. What mistake? Vincent knows about you. Knows that Lucien's been diverting family money to pay for your father's treatment. Knows about the restaurant. Knows that Lucien is in love with the daughter of the man he was supposed to destroy. Isabel's voice was ice. Vincent is planning to kill your father tonight, and he's going to make Lucien watch. The room tilted. Where? Serena heard herself ask. The care facility. Vincent's already sent men. They'll move him to a secondary location before midnight. You have to decide, Isabel interrupted, whether you're going to let my brother destroy the last good thing Ilaria left in this world, or whether you're going to fight. Then she walked to the door, paused, and looked back. Lucien is at the restaurant. He's been there for 3 days, sleeping in the office, waiting for you to come back. If you're going to do something, do it now, before there's nothing left to save. The door clicked shut behind her. Serena stood frozen for 10 seconds. Then she grabbed her phone and ran. The restaurant was dark when she arrived. The front door was locked, but Serena had a key, one of the first things Lucien had given her. She let herself in, her hand shaking so badly she nearly dropped it twice. Lucien! Her voice echoed through the empty dining room. No answer. She took the stairs to the second floor 2 at a time. The office door was closed but not locked. She shoved it open. Lucien sat behind his desk, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled, the top 3 buttons undone. Stubble darkened his jaw. When he saw her, he stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. Serena. Your father is going to kill my dad, she said, breathless. Tonight. Your aunt told me. She said Vincent knows everything, and he's going to make you watch. Lucien's face went white. Isabel came to you? Does it matter? Yes, it... He stopped, running both hands through his hair. Christ, he wasn't supposed to know yet. I've been moving money carefully, covering tracks. How did he... I don't care how he found out. I care about stopping him. Lucien looked at her like she'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. You want me to help you? Yes. After everything I did to you. I don't have time to hate you right now. The words came out as a scream. I can hate you tomorrow. I can hate you for the rest of my life. But right now, I need you to help me save my father. Something in Lucien's expression cracked open. He grabbed his phone, dialing a number. It rang twice before someone picked up. It's me, Lucien said. I need eyes on the care facility in Queens, Mount Sinai, patient name Robert Vale. Do it now. He hung up, then looked at Serena. My father moves fast. If he's already mobilized, we have maybe an hour. Then we go now. Serena, if we do this, there's no going back. I'll be going against my own family. Vincent will see it as treason. And he'll kill me for it. Serena stepped forward, grabbed his face in both hands, and forced him to look at her. Then you better make sure we win. For the first time in days, Lucien smiled. It was grim, exhausted, and terrified, but it was real. Okay, he said. Let's go to war. They took Lucien's car, a sleek black Mercedes that handled like it was designed for high-speed chases. Lucien drove with the kind of focused intensity that suggested he'd done this before. Serena sat in the passenger seat, her phone in her lap, trying to call her father. No answer. She tried the care facility. The receptionist who usually answered wasn't there. Instead, a man's voice picked up. Mount Sinai Long-Term Care, how can I help you? I need to speak to Robert Vale's nurse. One moment. The line went silent, then dead. Serena's blood ran cold. They're already inside. Lucien's jaw tightened. He pressed the accelerator harder. The care facility was a low-slung building in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place designed to be forgettable. By the time they pulled into the parking lot, Serena could see 2 black SUVs parked near the emergency exit, Vincent's men. Lucien killed the engine. Stay in the car. No. Serena, I'm not staying in the car. She opened the door and got out before he could argue. Lucien cursed under his breath and followed. They entered through the main entrance. The lobby was empty except for a security guard who looked up as they walked in. Lucien pulled out his wallet, flashed a wad of cash, and the guard suddenly became very interested in his phone. 3rd floor, Serena said. Room 304. They took the stairs. The building was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt wrong. When they reached the third floor, Serena's worst fears were confirmed. Her father's room was empty. The bed was unmade. Medical equipment beeped uselessly in the corner, but Robert Vale was gone. "No," Serena whispered. "No, no, no." Lucian grabbed her arm. "Listen." Voices, coming from down the hall. Angry, male. Lucian pulled a gun from the small of his back. When had he armed himself? And moved toward the sound. Serena followed, her heart slamming against her ribs. The voices led them to a service elevator at the end of the corridor. The doors were open. Inside, two men in dark suits stood on either side of a wheelchair. Robert Vale sat in the chair, an oxygen mask over his face, his eyes closed. One of the men looked up and saw Lucian. His hand went to his jacket. "Don't," Lucian said, his voice dead calm. The gun in his hand didn't waver. The man hesitated. "Step away from the chair," Lucian continued. "Slowly." "Mr. DeMarco," the man said carefully, "your father gave us orders. I'm giving you different ones. With all due respect, we don't answer to you. You do now." The second man moved fast, pulling his own weapon. Lucian fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. The man went down, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his shirt. The first man froze. "Next one goes through your skull," Lucian said. "Your choice." The man raised his hands and stepped back. Serena rushed forward, grabbing the wheelchair. Her father's eyes fluttered open. When he saw her, confusion crossed his face. "Serena? I'm getting you out of here." Lucien kept the gun trained on both men as Serena wheeled her father backward out of the elevator. The moment they were clear, Lucien stepped inside, pressed a button, and stepped back out. The doors closed, trapping the two men inside. "That won't hold them long," Lucien said. "We need to move." They ran. Serena pushed the wheelchair as fast as she dared, her father protesting weakly. Lucien led them down a back stairwell, through a service corridor that smelled like industrial cleaner, and out into the parking lot. They were 10 feet from the car when headlights blazed to life. A third SUV pulled up, blocking their path. The back door opened. Vincent DeMarco stepped out. He was older than Lucien, silver-haired and broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Serena made in a month. But it was his eyes that made her stop breathing. Cold, empty. The eyes of a man who'd done terrible things and slept soundly afterward. "Lucien," Vincent said. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "This is disappointing. Get back in the car, Dad. You're pointing a gun at family employees. You're stealing property I'm in the process of acquiring, and you're doing it for her." Vincent's gaze slid to Serena. The dishwasher's daughter. How poetic. "This ends now," Lucian said. "Oh, it does, but not the way you think." Vincent gestured, and 6 men emerged from the shadows. All armed, all pointed at Lucien. Lucian didn't lower his weapon. "You're going to let them go." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'll burn everything you've built to the ground. Every ledger, every contact, every dirty deal you've made in the last 30 years. I have copies of all of it, and if anything happens to me, it all goes to the FBI. Vincent's expression didn't change. "You're bluffing. Try me." For a long moment, father and son stared at each other. Two apex predators in a parking lot, surrounded by violence waiting to happen. Then Vincent smiled. "You really do love her," he said, almost wonderingly. "My God, Ilaria would be so disappointed. Don't you dare say her name." "Why not? She was my wife. Even if she was whoring herself out to trash like him." Vincent nodded toward Robert. Lucian's finger tightened on the trigger. "Do it," Vincent said softly. "Shoot me. Become exactly what I raised you to be. Or lower the gun and accept that you've already lost." Serena saw it happen in slow motion. Lucian's hand wavered. The gun lowered an inch, and Vincent moved. He was faster than a man his age should be. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, grabbed Lucien's wrist, and twisted. The gun clattered to the pavement. Then Vincent's fist connected with Lucien's jaw, and Lucien went down. Serena screamed. Vincent's men moved forward, grabbing Lucien, hauling him upright. Blood dripped from his split lip. "Take them both," Vincent said, gesturing at Serena and her father. "The old man dies first. Make it slow. Make the boy watch. Then kill her. I want him to see exactly what defying me costs." Hands grabbed Serena's arms. She fought, kicking, clawing, but there were too many of them. Her father tried to stand from the wheelchair and collapsed, gasping for air. "Stop!" Lucian's voice was raw. "Please, Dad, please." Vincent turned to look at his son. "Begging doesn't suit you." "I'll do whatever you want. I'll come back. I'll run everything. Just let them go." "No. Please. You chose this the moment you fell in love with her. Now you get to live with the consequences." Vincent nodded to his men, and then the world exploded. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions at once. Vincent's men scattered, some returning fire, others diving for cover. Serena hit the ground hard, her ears ringing. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Someone grabbed her. She fought until she heard the voice. "It's me! It's me! Come on!" Lucien. He pulled her behind a car, his face streaked with blood and dirt. "Stay down." "What's happening?" "Isabel." He pointed toward the building entrance where a group of armed men and women were advancing with military precision. She called in reinforcements. A bullet shattered the car window above them. Lucien shoved Serena lower, covering her body with his. The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes, but felt like hours. When it finally stopped, the parking lot looked like a war zone. Bodies on the ground, shattered glass everywhere. The acrid smell of gunpowder thick in the air. Lucian stood slowly, pulling Serena up with him. Vincent was on his knees, surrounded by Isabel's people. His men were either dead or disarmed. Blood ran from a cut on his temple, but he was smiling. "You think you've won," Vincent said, looking at Lucian. "You think this changes anything." "It's over, Dad. It's never over. I taught you that." Isabel appeared beside them, a gun in her hand. "Lucien, we need to move. Police will be here in 5 minutes." "What about him?" "I'll handle Vincent. Get her father to safety. Get her to safety. Go." Lucien hesitated, looking at his father one last time. Vincent's smile widened. "See you soon, son." Then Lucien turned away, grabbed Serena's hand, and ran. They got her father into the Mercedes and drove. Lucien didn't speak. His hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel, his breathing shallow. Serena sat in the back with her father, who was drifting in and out of consciousness. She held his hand and watched the city lights blur past the windows. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere safe." "Where's that?" "I don't know yet." They ended up at a private medical facility in Westchester, the kind of place that didn't ask questions if you paid in cash. Lucien carried Robert inside himself, barking orders at the staff. They took him immediately, hooking him up to monitors, stabilizing his vitals. A doctor emerged an hour later. "He'll be okay. Exhausted, traumatized, but okay." Serena nearly collapsed with relief. Lucien caught her, holding her upright. They stood like that for a long moment, in a sterile hallway that smelled like antiseptic and fear, and said nothing. Finally, Serena pulled away. "I need to know," she said quietly. "Was any of it real?" Lucien looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "All of it. Every moment. Every word. I fell in love with you, Serena, and that's the one thing I can't take back. Your father will come after us. I know. This doesn't end here." "I know that too." "Then what do we do?" Lucien took her hand. "We finish it, once and for all." And for the first time since this nightmare began, Serena believed him. They stayed at the facility for 2 days while her father recovered. Lucien made phone calls in low voices, arranging safe houses, moving money, calling in favors from people Serena didn't know existed. On the 3rd day, Isabel arrived. She looked tired, older, but alive. "Vincent's in custody," she said. "FBI raided 3 of his properties this morning. The ledgers Lucien threatened him with? They were real, and they're devastating. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." Serena felt something loosen in her chest. "It's really over?" "The immediate danger is, but there are others in the family who won't forgive what Lucien did. You'll need to be careful." Lucien nodded. We will be. Isabel looked between them. Ilaria would have liked you, she said to Serena. She always wanted Lucian to find someone who challenged him, someone who made him better. I'm not sure I make him anything. You make him human. That's more than the rest of us ever managed. After Isabel left, Serena found Lucian standing by her father's bedside. Robert was awake, watching him with an expression Serena couldn't read. I'm sorry, Lucian said quietly, for everything. For hunting you. For using your daughter. For all of it. Robert was silent for a long time. Then, Ilaria loved you very much. She used to talk about you, about how smart you were, how kind. She was so proud. Lucien's throat worked. She was trying to escape him, trying to save you. I know, and I failed her. I've lived with that every day since. We both have. Robert reached out with a trembling hand. After a moment, Lucian took it. Take care of my daughter, Robert said, or I'll come back from the dead and haunt you myself. Despite everything, Lucian smiled. Yes, sir. Serena watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face, and felt something shift inside her chest. Forgiveness wasn't easy. But maybe it was possible. That night, back at a restaurant, because Serena refused to hide anymore, she and Lucian stood in the empty kitchen. The marble gleamed. The stainless steel reflected their faces back at them. What happens now? Serena asked. We rebuild. Different this time. Better. Can we? I don't know. But I want to try. He turned to face her. I love you, Serena. I know I have no right to say that. I know I've destroyed any chance I had. But it's the truth. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn back what I broke. Serena looked at him. Really looked at him. At the bruises on his face, the exhaustion in his eyes, the way he held himself like he expected her to walk away at any moment. I don't trust you, she said. I know. And I don't forgive you. I don't expect you to. But I'm not leaving. She stepped closer. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't know. But if we're going to do this, if we're going to try, it has to be real. No more secrets, no more lies, no more revenge. Deal. And you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that the next time you look at me, you won't see your mother, you won't see your father, you won't see the past. You'll just see me. Lucien's hand came up, cupping her face. I already do. And when he kissed her this time, it felt like the beginning of something instead of the end. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. Sirens, traffic, lives being lived and lost and rebuilt. But inside the kitchen of Ilaria, named for a woman who'd died trying to escape, and a man who'd spent his whole life learning how to let go, two people stood in the wreckage of everything they'd destroyed and chose, against all odds, to start again. The grand opening was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. They had work to do. The call came at 4 in the morning. Serena's phone vibrated against the nightstand, pulling her from the first decent sleep she'd had in weeks. She fumbled for it in the dark, her heart already racing before she even saw the name on the screen. Isabel. Hello? They took him. Isabel's voice was sharp, clipped, no preamble. Vincent's people. They got to Lucian 20 minutes ago. Serena sat bolt upright, suddenly wide awake. What? How? He went to check on the restaurant, alone, against my explicit instructions. There were 4 of them waiting. They knocked out his security detail and took him. Where? I don't know yet. But Serena, listen to me carefully. Vincent's still in federal custody, but his reach extends beyond prison walls. This is a message. They're going to kill Lucian unless we give them what they want. Serena's blood turned to ice. What do they want? The ledgers, the evidence, everything Lucian used to put Vincent away. They want it destroyed, and they want you dead. You're the reason Lucian betrayed the family. As long as you're alive, you're a threat. Then let them come for me. That's not... Tell me where to meet them. Isabel was silent for 3 seconds. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. Tell me where. Another pause. Then, the old meatpacking warehouse on Gansevoort Street, Pier 52. They want you there by 6 a.m. Alone. Or they start sending Lucian back to you in pieces. Serena's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. I'll be there. Serena, wait. She hung up. For 30 seconds, she sat in the darkness of her bedroom, listening to her own heartbeat thunder in her ears. Then she got up, got dressed, and did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She opened the locked drawer in her closet and pulled out the gun Lucien had given her 3 days ago. "You won't need it," he'd said, "but if something happens, if I'm not there, don't hesitate. Point and shoot. Survival doesn't give you time for guilt." She'd hated him for it. Now she checked the clip, made sure the safety was off, and shoved it into the waistband of her jeans. The warehouse district was deserted at 5:30 in the morning. Fog rolled off the Hudson River in thick gray waves, muffling the sound of Serena's footsteps as she approached Pier 52. The old meatpacking warehouse loomed ahead, a massive brick structure with shattered windows and rusted fire escapes clinging to its sides like skeletal fingers. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a trap. She walked in anyway. The main entrance was a loading bay with corrugated metal doors hanging half open. Serena ducked under and found herself in a cavernous space that smelled like old blood, rotting wood, and decades of industrial decay. Overhead lights flickered erratically, casting shadows that moved like living things. "Hello?" Her voice echoed off the concrete walls. Movement in the darkness ahead. 3 men emerged from behind a stack of pallets. Professional. Armed. The kind of men who killed for a living and slept soundly afterward. The one in front, broad-shouldered, scarred face, dead eyes, smiled when he saw her. "Serena Vale. You're either very brave or very stupid." "Where is he?" "Safe, for now." The man gestured toward a metal staircase leading to a second-floor office. "Up there. But first, we need to discuss terms." "I'm not discussing anything until I see him." "That's not how this works." Serena pulled the gun from her waistband and aimed it directly at the man's head. Her hands were steady. "Yes, it is." The 3 men tensed, hands moving toward their own weapons. "Easy," the leader said, raising his hand slowly. "You shoot me, my boys kill you before you hit the ground. Then we kill your boyfriend. Then we kill your father. Everybody loses. Then take me to Lucien. Now." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the man laughed. It was an ugly sound, devoid of humor. "Vincent said you had spine. All right, come on." He turned and walked toward the staircase. Serena followed, keeping the gun trained on his back, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack them. The second floor was a maze of abandoned offices with moldy drywall and broken furniture. The leader stopped in front of a door at the end of the hallway and knocked twice. "Brought you a visitor, DeMarco." The door swung open. Lucien was tied to a metal chair in the center of the room, his wrists bound behind him with zip ties, his face a mess of bruises and dried blood. When he saw Serena, his eyes went wide with horror. "No," he rasped. "No, what are you doing here?" Serena's throat closed up. "I'm getting you out." "You shouldn't have come. You should have." One of the men backhanded him across the face. Lucien's head snapped to the side, fresh blood spilling from his split lip. Serena raised the gun. "Touch him again, and I'll put a bullet through your skull." The leader stepped between them. "Easy. Everyone's tense. Let's all take a breath and talk like civilized people." "Civilized people don't kidnap and torture." "Fair point." He pulled out a phone and made a call. "Yeah, we got her, both of them. What do you want us to do?" He listened for a moment, his expression unchanging. Then he hung up and looked at Serena. "Change of plans. The boss wants to talk to you directly." "Vincent's in prison." "Not Vincent." The man's smile widened. "His brother, Carlo." The name sent ice through Serena's veins. She'd heard it exactly once in passing, from Isabel. Carlo DeMarco, Vincent's older brother, the one who'd supposedly retired from the family business 20 years ago, the one nobody talked about. "He's downstairs," the man continued. "You want your boyfriend to live, you go down there and negotiate. Otherwise, we shoot him right here, right now, and dump both your bodies in the river." Serena looked at Lucien. His eyes were fierce, desperate, pleading. "Don't," he said. "Serena, don't." She turned to the leader. "Let him go first. Then I'll talk to Carlo." "No deal." "Then shoot us both, because I'm not cooperating until Lucien walks out of here." The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Then a voice came from the hallway, old, raspy, amused. Let the boy go. Everyone turned. An elderly man stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on a cane. He was gaunt, his face a roadmap of wrinkles and liver spots, but his eyes were sharp, predatory. The eyes of someone who'd built empires on bones. Carlo DeMarco. Uncle, the leader said. She's armed. We should... I said let him go. The men hesitated, then moved to cut Lucian's zip ties. He stumbled forward, catching himself against the wall. Serena moved toward him, but Carlo raised a hand. Not yet, dear. First, you and I talk. Alone. No way in hell, Lucian said, his voice hoarse. It's okay, Serena said quietly, still holding the gun. I'll be fine. Serena, trust me. She followed Carlo out of the room, down the hallway, and into what used to be a foreman's office. It still had a desk, a filing cabinet, and a window overlooking the warehouse floor. Carlo lowered himself into a creaking chair with a sigh. Sit. Serena remained standing. What do you want? Direct. I like that. Carlo studied her with those unnerving eyes. My nephew told me about you. Said you were the reason Lucian went soft, turned against his own blood. I didn't believe him. Vincent's always been dramatic. But now I see it. See what? Why, a smart boy would burn his entire world down for a woman. Carlo smiled. It was worse than his brothers. You're nothing special to look at, not a classic beauty, but there's something in you, fire, steel, the kind of thing that makes weak men feel strong. Serena's finger tightened on the trigger. Is there a point to this? The point, dear girl, is that you've created a problem for my family. Vincent's arrest has destabilized our operations. Federal investigators are crawling through our businesses. Associates are getting nervous. And it all traces back to you. You seduced my great-nephew. You made him betray everything he was raised to be. I didn't seduce anyone. Lucien made his own choices. Did he? Or did you manipulate a grieving man's obsession with his dead mother? The accusation hit like a physical blow. Serena's vision blurred red at the edges. I didn't manipulate him. Didn't you? You saw an opportunity, a rich, powerful man with a weakness, and you exploited it. That's not... I don't particularly care whether it's true or not, Carlo interrupted. What matters is perception. And right now the family perceives you as a cancer that needs to be cut out. So here's my offer. You disappear. Tonight. Leave New York. Leave the country. Never contact Lucian again. In exchange, I let both of you live. And if I refuse, then I have my men take you out back and put a bullet in your skull. Then I have them do the same to Lucien. And then I have them visit your father and finish what Vincent started. Carlo leaned forward. I'm giving you a gift, girl. A chance to save the people you love. All you have to do is walk away. Serena's hands trembled. The gun felt impossibly heavy. How do I know you won't kill us anyway? You don't. But I'm a businessman, not a sadist. Dead bodies create complications. Missing people create mysteries, and mysteries fade with time. He stood slowly, wincing. You have 60 seconds to decide. After that, my patience runs out. Serena looked at the gun in her hand, at the old man who'd built his fortune on suffering, at the door behind which Lucien was probably bleeding and planning something suicidal. She thought about her father, about the restaurant, about the life she'd started to build. Then she thought about what Lucien had said to her in the kitchen 3 weeks ago. Survival doesn't give you time for guilt. She raised the gun and aimed it directly at Carlo's head. Here's my counteroffer, she said, her voice steady. You let us both walk out of here. You call off whatever kill orders you have on my family. And you convince the rest of the DeMarcos to leave us alone. Forever. Carlo's expression didn't change. And why would I agree to that? Because if you don't, I'll shoot you right now. And then I'll use your body as leverage to negotiate with your men. And even if they kill me, you'll still be dead. And all those business operations you mentioned, they'll collapse without leadership. Vincent's in prison. You're dead. Who takes over then? Your idiot nephews, the associates who are already nervous? For the first time, something flickered in Carlo's eyes. Fear. You're bluffing. Am I? Serena took a step closer. You said I have fire. Steel. You were right, but you forgot one thing. I've already lost everything once. I've already been at the bottom, and that means I have nothing left to lose. Can you say the same?" The silence stretched between them like a knife blade. Then Carlo laughed. It was a dry, rattling sound. "Ilaria was like you," he said quietly. "Stubborn, fearless, refused to back down even when she should have. That's why Vincent killed her. He couldn't control her, so he erased her." Serena's blood ran cold. "Vincent admitted it? To me, years later, drunk at a family dinner. He was proud of it." Carlo's expression darkened. "I told him he was a fool, that killing Ilaria would destroy his son, and I was right. Look at Lucien now. A mess, in love with the daughter of the man who helped cover it up. Vincent created his own nightmare." "Then help me end it." "Why would I?" "Because you're tired." Serena lowered the gun slightly, but kept it ready. "I can see it in your eyes. You're old, you're sick, and you're carrying 50 years of blood on your hands. This is your chance to do something good, something Ilaria would have wanted. Let her son go. Let him build something clean." Carlos stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Release them both." "No, I don't care. Do it now. And send word to the family. The girl and Lucien are off limits. Anyone who touches them answers to me." He hung up and looked at Serena. "You have 24 hours to get out of New York. After that, I can't guarantee your safety. Too many people want you dead." "We're not leaving." "Then you're fools." "Maybe, but we're alive." Carlos smiled one last time. "For now." Serena backed toward the door, keeping the gun trained on him until she was in the hallway. Then she ran. She found Lucien on the staircase, surrounded by Carlo's men. They'd given him a rag to press against his bleeding face. When he saw her, he pushed past them and grabbed her shoulders. "Are you insane? You could have been killed." "So could you." "That's different." "No, it's not." They stared at each other, both breathing hard, both covered in sweat and fear and adrenaline. Then Lucien pulled her into a crushing kiss. It tasted like blood and desperation and something that felt dangerously close to hope. When they broke apart, one of Carlo's men cleared his throat. "You should go. The old man doesn't change his mind often, but when he does, it's usually permanent." They didn't need to be told twice. They ran out of the warehouse into the early morning light and didn't stop until they reached Lucien's car, 3 blocks away. He drove with one hand, the other gripping Serena's like a lifeline. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." "There is no safe, not anymore." "Then we make one." They ended up at the restaurant. Ilaria stood silent in the pre-dawn darkness, its windows dark, its kitchen cold. Lucien unlocked the door, and they stumbled inside, collapsing against the wall. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, backs against the brick, breathing. Finally, Serena broke the silence. "We can't stay in New York." "I know." "Carlo gave us 24 hours." "I know." "The restaurant doesn't matter." Serena turned to look at him. "Yes, it does. We built this. We can't just abandon it." Lucien's jaw tightened. "We built it on blood money, on revenge, on lies. Maybe it's time to let it go. Is that what you want?" "What I want is for you to be alive tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day after. If that means walking away from this place, then that's what we do." Serena's throat tightened. "Where would we even go? I have contacts in Europe, Italy. We could disappear, start over, build something new." "You'd really leave everything behind? For you?" "Yes." The words hung between them like a vow. Serena stood, pulling Lucien up with her. "Show me." "Show you what?" "The kitchen. One last time." They walked through the dining room, their footsteps echoing. When Lucien opened the kitchen door, Serena felt her chest constrict. The marble countertops gleamed in the dim light filtering through the windows. The stainless steel reflected their battered faces back at them. Serena moved to her station, running her hands over the cool surface. "I was going to make history here." "You still can, somewhere else. It won't be the same." "No. It'll be better. Because it'll be ours. Not Vincent's, not the family's, ours." Serena closed her eyes, memorizing the feel of this space, the place where she'd rediscovered herself, where she'd fallen in love, where she'd learned that survival wasn't the same as living. When she opened them again, Lucien was watching her with an expression that made her heart ache. I love you, he said quietly. I've destroyed everything trying to protect you, and I'd do it again. I'd burn the whole world down if it meant keeping you safe. I know. And I'm sorry for all of it, for the surveillance, for the lies, for dragging you into this nightmare. Stop apologizing. I can't, not until you believe it. Serena crossed the space between them and grabbed his face in both hands. I believe you, and I love you too, even though you're reckless and self-destructive and you make terrible decisions. That's fair. And we're not running. Lucian's eyes widened. Serena? We're not running, she repeated, her voice fierce. Carlo gave us 24 hours to leave, so we have 24 hours to figure out how to fight back. There's no fighting the entire DeMarco family. Then we don't fight them. We dismantle them, piece by piece, the same way you dismantled Vincent. That took months of planning. Then we work fast. Lucian stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. But standing in this kitchen, in this space they'd built together, Serena felt something crystallize inside her chest. She was done running, done hiding, done letting other people's violence dictate her life. Okay, Lucien said slowly. Let's say we do this. How? Serena smiled. It felt sharp, dangerous. We call Isabel. We gather every piece of evidence we have on the family's operations, and we hand it all to the FBI. Every ledger, every contact, every dirty secret. We burn the whole empire to the ground. They'll kill us. Probably. This is insane. I know. Lucien's hands came up to cover hers, still cupping his face. You're sure? Are you? For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two people who'd been broken by grief and revenge and violence, standing in the ruins of everything they'd tried to build, making a choice that would either save them or destroy them completely. Then Lucian kissed her. Hard, desperate, like it might be the last time. When they broke apart, his eyes were blazing. All right, he said, let's go to war. They had 17 hours until Carlo's deadline. Serena pulled out her phone and called Isabel. The older woman answered on the first ring. Where are you? The restaurant. We're alive. Lucien's hurt but functional. Thank God. I've been trying to track you. Isabel, listen. We need everything, every file you have on DeMarco operations, every contact, every piece of leverage. Can you get it? In 17 hours? Serena, can you do it? A pause, then, yes. But you need to understand what you're asking. This will end the family, completely. Arrests, seizures, trials, it'll be a bloodbath. Good. People will die before they let this happen. Then we make sure it happens fast. Serena's voice was steel. Meet us at the restaurant in 2 hours. Bring everything. She hung up before Isabel could argue. Lucien was already moving, pulling up files on his laptop, making calls to contacts Serena didn't know existed. She watched him work, saw the way his hands shook slightly, the way he winced every time he moved his battered ribs. You should rest, she said. I'll rest when we're done. Lucien, I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Neither of them were. But they didn't have time for fine. Isabel arrived 90 minutes later with 2 briefcases full of documents and a flash drive that contained, in her words, enough evidence to put away 3 generations of DeMarcos. They spread everything across the dining room tables. Financial records, property deeds, shell company structures, photographs of meetings between family members and politicians, recordings of conversations that should never have been recorded. It was damning, all of it. This goes to the FBI, and it's over, Isabel said, looking at the evidence with something like grief. The family will cease to exist. Lucien stared at the documents with hollow eyes. Good. These are your relatives, Lucien, your blood. My blood put me in a chair and beat me unconscious. My blood tried to kill the woman I love. They stopped being family the moment they chose Vincent over everything else. Isabel didn't argue. Serena organized the evidence into categories, her mind working through logistics. We need a federal prosecutor who isn't on the DeMarco payroll. I know someone, Isabel said. SDNY, Southern District of New York. She's clean, ambitious. This case would make her career. Call her. While Isabel made the call, Serena found Lucian standing by the kitchen window, staring out at the city as it woke up. She moved to stand beside him. "You okay?" "No." "Me neither." He turned to look at her. "This is really happening." "Yes. After today, there's no going back. We'll be pariahs. Every associate, every ally, every person connected to the family will want us dead." "I know. We might not survive this." "I know that too." Lucienne took her hand, threading their fingers together. "I meant what I said earlier. I'd burn the world down for you." "I don't want the world to burn," Serena said quietly. "I just want us to be free." "Then let's finish this." The meeting with the federal prosecutor was set for 3 p.m. at a secure location in Lower Manhattan. Isabel would deliver the evidence personally, along with a sworn statement from Lucian detailing every crime he'd witnessed or participated in. It was a confession that would likely send him to prison, but it would also destroy the DeMarco empire. At 2:30, Serena's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it. "Serena Vale." The voice was unfamiliar. Male. Calm. "You've been busy today." "Who is this?" "A friend or an enemy. Depends on your next choice." Her blood went cold. "What do you want?" "Carlo's dead. Heart attack an hour ago. Very sudden, very convenient, which means the family is in chaos. And certain parties are very interested in making sure the evidence you've collected never sees daylight." "It's too late. It's already... We have your father." The world stopped. "What?" "Robert Vale. Westchester Medical Facility, room 302. We picked him up 20 minutes ago. He's alive, for now. But if you proceed with your meeting this afternoon, he won't be." Serena couldn't breathe. "You're lying." "Call the facility. Ask for his room. See what they tell you." Her hand shook as she dialed the number. The receptionist answered cheerfully, and Serena's request was met with confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but Mr. Vale checked out this morning. His family arranged a transfer." Serena hung up. Lucienne saw her expression and crossed the room in 2 strides. "What happened?" "They have my dad." "Who?" "I don't know. Someone from the family. They said if we go through with the FBI meeting, they'll kill him." Lucian's face went white. "It's a bluff." "What if it's not?" "Then we—" He stopped, because there was no good answer. Serena's phone rang again. Same number. "You have 30 minutes to bring the evidence to Pier 52. Same warehouse. All of it. You come alone. If we see federal agents, if we see police, if we see anyone except you, your father dies. Understood?" "Yes." 30 minutes. Clock's ticking." The line went dead. Serena looked at Lucian, at Isabel, at the evidence spread across the tables. "I have to go," she said. "No!" Lucian's voice was sharp. "This is a trap. They'll kill you both." "Then what do you suggest?" "We go through with the FBI meeting. And let them murder my father? We can't save everyone. He's my father!" The words echoed through the empty restaurant. Serena grabbed the flash drive and started shoving documents into a bag. Lucienne caught her wrist. "Serena, please, think about this." "I have thought about it." Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "You were willing to destroy your entire family to save me. I'm willing to do the same for him." "This is different." "No, it's not. I'm coming with you." "No." "Serena, someone needs to deliver the evidence to the FBI if I don't make it back." "That's you. That's the plan." "There is no plan." "Then we're improvising." She pulled free and headed for the door. Lucian followed, grabbing her shoulder, spinning her around. "I can't lose you," he said, his voice breaking. "I can't watch you walk into a death trap and do nothing." "You're not doing nothing. You're making sure that if I die, it means something." "That's not—" She kissed him. Hard. Final. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "Remember that." Then she ran. Lucian shouted her name, but she didn't stop. She got into her car, threw the bag of evidence onto the passenger seat, and drove toward Pier 52 with her heart hammering and her vision blurred by tears she refused to let fall. 28 minutes later, she pulled up to the warehouse. The fog had returned, thicker than before, turning the world into a gray nightmare. Serena grabbed the bag and walked inside. This time, 6 men waited for her. Professional. Armed. And in the center of the warehouse floor, tied to the same metal chair Lucian had occupied that morning, was her father. Robert Vale looked small, fragile. The oxygen tank beside him wheezed with each breath. When he saw Serena, his eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry." The leader from that morning stepped forward. "The evidence, all of it." Serena held up the bag. "Let him go first." "Not how this works." "Then shoot me, because I'm not handing over anything until he walks out of here." The standoff lasted 5 seconds. Then gunfire erupted from the warehouse entrance. Serena hit the ground as chaos exploded around her. Men shouting, weapons firing, the deafening crack of bullets against concrete. She crawled toward her father, her ears ringing, her hands scrabbling for the gun still tucked into her waistband. Someone grabbed her ankle. She kicked backward, connecting with flesh. The grip released. She kept moving. A body fell beside her, dead, blood pooling. She reached her father and started sawing at his zip ties with a piece of broken glass she found on the floor. Her hands were slick with blood, hers or someone else's. She couldn't tell. "Serena, go," her father gasped. "Just go. Not without you." The zip ties snapped. Robert collapsed forward and Serena caught him, her muscles screaming as she tried to lift his weight. Then Lucian was there. He appeared out of the smoke and chaos like an avenging spirit, blood on his face, a gun in each hand. He fired twice without looking, and 2 men went down. "Move!" he shouted. Together, they half-carried, half-dragged Robert toward the exit. Behind them, the firefight continued, but Serena didn't look back. Couldn't look back. They burst out into the fog and found Isabel waiting beside a black SUV, the back door open. "Get in!" They shoved Robert into the back seat. Serena climbed in after him. Lucian slammed the door and dove into the front passenger seat. Isabel floored it. The SUV screamed away from the warehouse, tires smoking. Serena looked back through the rear window and saw figures emerging from the building, raising weapons. Bullets punched through the rear windshield. Robert grabbed Serena and pulled her down. Glass rained over them. Lucian leaned out the window and returned fire, his face a mask of concentration and fury. Then they turned a corner, and the warehouse disappeared behind them. Isabel drove for 10 minutes without slowing, taking random turns, doubling back, making sure they weren't followed. Finally, she pulled into an underground parking garage and killed the engine. Silence. Serena sat up slowly, her entire body shaking. Robert was beside her, pale and gasping, but alive. Lucian turned around in his seat, his eyes wild. "Is everyone okay?" "Define okay," Serena managed. "Alive. I'm defining it as alive." "Then yes." Isabel pulled out her phone. "The prosecutor's still waiting. I can have the evidence to her in 20 minutes. Serena looked at the bag, now torn and blood-stained, sitting on the floor of the SUV. "Do it," she said. "Serena," her father started. "It's over, Dad. All of it. The lies, the fear, the violence. We're ending it today." Robert's eyes filled with tears again, but he nodded. Lucian reached back and took Serena's hand. "You know what happens next. Arrests, trials, witness protection, probably. Prison. For me, definitely. We'll deal with it. Together?" Serena squeezed his hand. "Together." Isabel made the call. 30 minutes later, the flash drive and documents were in federal hands. By evening, arrest warrants were being issued. By midnight, the DeMarco empire began to crumble. And in a safe house in Brooklyn, Serena Vale sat beside Lucienne DeMarco and her father, watching the news reports roll in, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace, temporary, fragile, probably fleeting, but real. Lucian turned to her as the sun started to rise through the window. "What happens now?" Serena looked at him, battered, exhausted, free for the first time in his life. "Now," she said, "we figure out how to live." And for the first time since this nightmare began, she believed it might actually be possible. The federal indictments came down like hammers. 47 arrests in the first 72 hours. DeMarco associates dragged out of their homes in handcuffs, their faces plastered across every news channel in the tri-state area. Bank accounts frozen, properties seized, a criminal empire that had stood for 3 generations dismantled in less than a week. Serena watched it all from the safe house in Brooklyn, A nondescript brownstone with reinforced doors and federal agents stationed on every corner. She sat on a threadbare couch with her father beside her, his oxygen tank hissing softly, and felt nothing. Not relief, not satisfaction, not even exhaustion, just emptiness. Lucien stood by the window, watching the street below with the kind of vigilance that would probably never leave him. He hadn't slept in 3 days. The bruises on his face had darkened to ugly purples and yellows, making him look like a boxer who'd lost badly. "They want you to testify," Isabel said from the doorway. She'd been coordinating with the prosecutors, handling logistics, keeping them alive. "Both of you. Grand jury convenes in 2 weeks." Lucien didn't turn around. "And after that? Witness protection, new identities, new lives, the usual." "Where?" "Somewhere far from New York, Montana maybe, or Oregon, somewhere quiet." Serena almost laughed. The idea of Lucien DeMarco in Montana, living under an assumed name, working some anonymous job, it was absurd. He was a creature of cities, of shadows, of the kind of darkness you couldn't find in wide-open spaces. "What about my father?" she asked. "He goes with you, full medical support. The FBI's already arranged transfer to a facility, wherever you end up." Robert reached over and took Serena's hand. His grip was weak but steady. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, for all of this, for every choice I made that led us here." "Don't," Serena said quietly. "We've had enough apologies. I mean it. Ilaria died because I was a coward, because I chose my own survival over justice. And you've spent your whole life paying for that choice. So has Lucien." "I know." Robert looked across the room at the man standing by the window. "I owe you both more than I can ever repay." Lucien finally turned. His amber eyes were hollow. "You don't owe me anything. I hunted your daughter. I manipulated her life. I used her as a weapon. The debt goes the other way. You also saved her, multiple times, after putting her in danger in the first place." The two men stared at each other across the cramped living room. Serena felt the weight of everything unspoken between them: grief, guilt, the ghost of a woman who'd died trying to escape the same violence that had nearly consumed them all. "Ilaria would have forgiven you," Robert said finally. "Both of you. She was better at that than the rest of us." Lucien's jaw tightened. For a moment, Serena thought he might break. Instead, he turned back to the window and said nothing. The grand jury testimony took 6 hours. Serena sat in a windowless room and recounted everything. The surveillance, the manipulation, the restaurant, the kidnapping, the shootout at the warehouse. She spoke in a flat, mechanical voice, reading from notes the prosecutors had prepared, and felt like she was describing someone else's life. When they asked her about her relationship with Lucien, she hesitated. She stopped, started again. "We are together. I don't know what that means anymore, but it's real. Despite the fact that he orchestrated your meeting as part of a revenge plot?" "Yes." "Why?" Serena looked at the prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 40s with steel gray eyes. "Because people are more complicated than the worst things they've done, and because somewhere in all the lies we found something true." The prosecutor didn't look convinced, but she moved on. Lucien's testimony was shorter. He gave them names, dates, transactions. He detailed crimes going back a decade. When they asked him why he'd turned on his family, he said simply, "Because I fell in love with someone who deserved better than the life I was living." The indictments expanded. More arrests, more headlines. Vincent DeMarco, still in federal custody, reportedly suffered a stroke when he learned the extent of his son's betrayal. He survived, but the word was he'd never walk again. Serena felt nothing about that either. 2 weeks after the testimony, the prosecutors called with news. "We have a problem," the lead attorney said. 3 of the key witnesses have recanted their statements, and 2 others have disappeared. We think the family got to them." Serena's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means our case just got significantly weaker. We can still prosecute, but without those witnesses, we're looking at reduced charges. Plea deals. Some of these people might walk." "After everything we gave you?" "The evidence is strong, but testimony from cooperating witnesses carries weight, and right now they're either too scared to talk or they've been paid off." The attorney paused. "There's another option. If You and Lucien are willing to testify at trial, in open court. Your testimonies would be enough to secure convictions. What's the risk? You'd be publicly identified. No more anonymity, no more witness protection. Every remaining DeMarco associate would know exactly where to find you. Serena closed her eyes. How long do we have to decide? 48 hours. She hung up and told Lucien. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Then he stood, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the door. Where are you going? Serena asked. To think. Lucien, I need to be alone for a while. The door closed behind him before she could argue. Serena sat in the empty safe house and felt the weight of the decision crushing her chest. Testify and risk their lives, or stay silent and watch guilty men walk free. Her father found her an hour later, staring at the wall. He'll come back, Robert said, lowering himself into a chair with a wince. Will he? He loves you. That's not something that disappears just because the world gets complicated. Everything about us is complicated, Dad. We were built on revenge and lies. How do you build a future on that? The same way anyone builds a future, one day at a time, making better choices than the ones that came before. Robert's voice was soft. I made terrible choices, Serena. I lied. I let fear control me. And you've spent your whole life suffering for it. But you're not me. And Lucien's not Vincent. You both have a chance to break the cycle. Don't waste it. What if testifying gets us killed? Then at least you'll have done the right thing. That's more than I can say. Serena looked at her father, frail, dying, carrying decades of guilt in his eyes, and felt something shift inside her chest. She'd spent so much time angry. At him. At Lucien. At the universe for taking everything she'd ever wanted and setting it on fire. But anger was exhausting, and she was so tired. I forgive you, she said quietly. Robert's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to. I know, but I do. I forgive you for being scared, for making bad choices, for being human. She reached over and took his hand, and I forgive myself for being angry about it. They sat like that for a long time, father and daughter, letting years of unspoken pain finally settle into something that felt like peace. Lucien returned 3 hours later, soaking wet from rain Serena hadn't even noticed starting. He stood in the doorway, dripping onto the hardwood floor, and looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. I talked to Isabel, he said. Asked her what my mother would have done if she'd been in this position. What did she say? That Ilaria never ran from anything, even when she should have, even when it killed her. Lucien's voice cracked. She said my mother believed that some things were worth dying for, and that the people we love are always at the top of that list. Serena stood up. Lucien, I want to testify. Not because I think it'll fix anything, not because I'm trying to atone, but because if we don't, then everything we've been through, all the pain, all the fear, all the blood, it means nothing, and I can't live with that. It could get us killed. I know. We'd be giving up any chance at a normal life. I know that too. Serena crossed the room and stood in front of him. Then we do it together. Lucien pulled her into his arms and held on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the world. Together, he whispered into her hair. They called the prosecutor the next morning. We'll testify, Serena said. Both of us. Whatever you need. The trial started 6 weeks later. The courthouse in Lower Manhattan became a fortress. Metal detectors, armed guards, sharpshooters on the rooftops. The judge sealed the courtroom, limiting spectators and press access. The remaining DeMarco associates made threats, but federal protection held. Serena took the stand on day 3. She wore a simple black dress and kept her hands folded in her lap to stop them from shaking. The defense attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, tried to paint her as an opportunist who'd seduced Lucien for money and power. Isn't it true, Ms. Vale, that you entered into a relationship with Mr. DeMarco knowing full well about his family's criminal activities? No. You expect this jury to believe you had no idea? I suspected. I didn't know for certain until I found the surveillance file. And yet you stayed with him, accepted gifts, accepted money, benefited from his family's criminal enterprise. Yes. Why? Serena looked directly at the jury. Because I was drowning. My father was dying. I was working myself to death just to stay barely afloat, and Lucian offered me a way out. Was it wrong to take it? Probably, but I'm not going to apologize for wanting to survive. The defense attorney tried to rattle her, but Serena had been through too much to break now. She answered every question with brutal honesty, holding nothing back. When she stepped down 3 hours later, she felt like she'd been flayed open. Lucien testified the next day. He was calm, clinical, devastating. He detailed every crime with the precision of someone who'd helped orchestrate them. He implicated his father, his uncles, his cousins. He burned every bridge he'd ever had and didn't flinch. The defense tried to paint him as a scorned son seeking revenge. Isn't it true, Mr. DeMarco, that you turned on your family out of spite? Because your father disapproved of your relationship? No. Then why? Lucien looked at Serena, sitting in the front row of the gallery. Because I spent my entire life believing that loyalty to family was the only thing that mattered. And then I met someone who showed me that love, real love, requires more than blind obedience. It requires courage and integrity and the willingness to burn down everything you thought you knew if it turns out to be built on suffering. The courtroom was silent. My father killed my mother, Lucien continued, his voice steady. He orchestrated her death and let me believe it was an accident for 20 years. He turned me into a weapon, pointed me at innocent people, taught me that power was the only thing worth having. And I'm done. I'm done being his son. I'm done being part of a legacy built on violence. If testifying here means I spend the rest of my life in prison, so be it. At least I'll know I finally did one good thing. The defense had no response to that. The trial lasted 8 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 days. When the verdicts came back, 12 defendants were convicted on multiple counts. RICO charges, conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, murder. Vincent DeMarco received 4 consecutive life sentences. The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Family members screamed obscenities. Federal marshals moved in to control the chaos. Serena sat in the gallery beside her father and felt something that might have been relief if it weren't so heavy. Lucien was led out in handcuffs. He'd pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for his cooperation, and as he passed their row, he looked at Serena one last time. "I love you," he mouthed. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The prosecutors kept their word. Lucien received a reduced sentence, 5 years with possibility of parole in 3. White-collar facility, minimum security. It could have been worse. It could have been so much worse. Serena and her father were released from witness protection. The immediate threat was gone, but the danger would never fully disappear. There would always be someone with a grudge, someone looking for revenge. But they'd learn to live with that. 6 months after the trial, Serena stood in front of a small storefront in Portland, Oregon, and looked up at the sign above the door. Hilaria. The restaurant was smaller than the one in New York. Simpler. No marble countertops or designer appliances, just a functional kitchen, a dining room that seated 30, and windows that looked out onto a quiet street where people walked dogs and pushed strollers. It was perfect. Matteo had followed her west, along with 2 other cooks from the original team. They'd built the menu together, Italian classics with Pacific Northwest ingredients, handmade pasta with Dungeness crab, braised short ribs with local mushrooms, panna cotta with Marion berries. The reviews, when they came, were glowing. "An intimate masterpiece," one critic wrote. "Chef Vale has taken everything she learned in New York and distilled it into something purer, more honest. This is food with a soul." Serena kept the review pinned to the corkboard in her office, right next to a photograph of Lucien. She visited him every month. The facility was a 4-hour drive from Portland, and the visits were awkward at first. They sat across from each other in a sterile visiting room and struggled to find words that fit the enormity of everything between them. But slowly, over months and then years, they learned to talk like normal people. "How's the restaurant?" Lucien asked during one visit. "Good. We're booked out 3 weeks. Had to hire another line cook." "You always said you wanted a waiting list." "Turns out it's stressful." He smiled. It looked less haunted than it used to. "How's your dad?" "Stable. The new treatment is working. His doctors are cautiously optimistic." "Good. That's good." Silence. Then Serena reached across the table and took his hand. "I miss you," she said. I miss you too. 2 more years. I know. We can do 2 more years. Lucienne's fingers tightened around hers. And then what? Then we figure out the rest. Together. I'm going to have a record. No restaurant will hire me. I'll be a felon living on parole. Then you'll work in my kitchen, as a prep cook or a dishwasher. I don't care, as long as you're there. Serena, I mean it. I didn't survive all of this just to lose you now. We're seeing this through, whatever it takes. Lucien looked at her like she was something miraculous. You're insane. Probably. I love you. I know. On the 2-year anniversary of the trial, Serena received a letter. It was from Vincent DeMarco. She almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. The letter was handwritten, the penmanship shaky. Miss Vale, I'm writing this from a prison cell where I'll spend the rest of my life. I have no illusions about redemption. I know what I am, what I've done, the people I've destroyed. But I wanted you to know something. My son loved my wife more than anything in this world. When she died, something in him broke. I tried to mold that brokenness into something useful. A weapon. A heir. But all I did was create a monster. And then you came along. I hated you for it. Hated that you made him weak, made him human, made him betray everything I'd built. But I was wrong. You didn't make him weak. You made him strong enough to walk away from everything he'd been taught. Strong enough to choose love over loyalty. Strong enough to become the man his mother always wanted him to be. I'll die in here. Soon, probably. And I'll die knowing that I failed my wife, failed my son, failed everyone who ever trusted me. But at least Lucien has you. That's more than I deserve. Vincent DeMarco. Serena read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. She didn't know if it was an apology. Didn't know if it changed anything. But it felt like an ending. Lucien was released on parole after 3 years and 2 months. Serena picked him up from the facility on a clear September morning. He walked out wearing civilian clothes that hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight, gotten harder, more angular, and carrying a single duffel bag. When he saw her, he stopped walking. They stared at each other across the parking lot. Then Serena ran to him. He caught her, lifting her off the ground, and she wrapped her arms around his neck and held on like she'd never let go. Hi, he said into her hair. Hi yourself. I'm out. I noticed. For good this time. I'm holding you to that. They drove back to Portland with the windows down, letting the wind tear through the car. Lucien sat in the passenger seat and watched the landscape roll by. Mountains, forests, rivers, like he was seeing the world for the first time. It's beautiful out here, he said. It's home. Yeah. He looked at her. It is. The restaurant was closed for a private event that night. Serena had invited everyone. Matteo and the kitchen staff, Isabel, who'd flown in from New York, Robert, who sat at the head of the table with his oxygen tank beside him, and a handful of regulars who'd become friends. Lucien walked into the dining room and stopped. The space was decorated simply, candles on every table, flowers from the Pike Place market. And in the open kitchen, visible through the pass, Serena stood at her station, cooking. She looked up and met his eyes. Welcome home, she said. Lucien's throat worked. What is this? Dinner, for everyone who helped us survive. Serena, sit down. I made your mother's recipe, osso buco, the way you told me she used to make it. He moved to the kitchen window, watching her work. The way her hands moved through the prep with practiced precision. The way she tasted the sauce and adjusted the seasoning without measuring. The way she plated each dish like it was a work of art. You learned this for me, he said quietly. I learned it for both of us. For Ilaria. For everyone we lost along the way. When the food was served, the table fell silent. It was perfect. Rich, tender veal that fell off the bone. Gremolata that cut through the richness with bright, sharp flavors. Risotto that tasted like comfort and grief and hope all mixed together. Robert raised his glass. To survival, and the people brave enough to keep fighting for it. Everyone drank. After dinner, Serena and Lucien stood on the sidewalk outside the restaurant, watching the city settle into its evening rhythm. What happens now? Lucien asked. It was the same question they'd asked each other a dozen times over the past 3 years. And Serena's answer was always the same. Now we live. Just like that? Just like that. Lucien pulled her close, pressing his forehead against hers. I don't know how to do this. How to be normal. How to be happy without waiting for it to be taken away. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. Together? Always. He kissed her, slow and soft and full of promise. When they broke apart, Serena looked up at the sign above the door. Ilaria. Named for a woman who'd died trying to escape, who'd loved fiercely and paid the ultimate price, who'd left behind a son who'd spent 20 years learning how to do the same. She would have been proud of you, Serena said. Lucien followed her gaze. She would have loved you more. Think so? I know so. He took her hand. Ready to go home? Serena smiled. Yeah, I am. They walked down the quiet Portland street, past coffee shops and bookstores, and people living ordinary lives. Behind them, the restaurant stood dark and silent, waiting for tomorrow's service. And for the first time in their lives, Serena Vale and Lucien DeMarco weren't running from the past. They were walking toward a future, together, the way it was always supposed to be. 5 years later, Serena stood in the same kitchen and watched her staff prep for another sold-out service. Ilaria had grown, expanded to a second location, won a James Beard Award, been featured in every major food publication in the country, but the original location remained her favorite. Robert had passed away 18 months ago, peacefully, in his sleep. The funeral was small, just family and close friends. Lucien had given the eulogy, speaking about forgiveness and second chances and the courage it takes to live with your mistakes. They'd scattered his ashes in the Columbia River Gorge, where the water rushed wild and free and the mountains touched the sky. Isabel visited twice a year, always bringing news from New York. The DeMarco empire was gone. The property sold off. The associates scattered or imprisoned. Vincent had died in prison 6 months after Robert, and Isabel had been the only family member to attend his funeral. He died alone, she'd told Serena during her last visit. Just like he lived. Serena didn't feel sad about it, just tired. The kitchen door opened and Lucien walked in, carrying a box of fresh herbs from the farmer's market. He'd become the restaurant's forager, spending his mornings at markets and farms, building relationships with suppliers, finding the best ingredients. It suited him. He looked healthy, happy. The shadows that used to haunt his eyes had faded, replaced by something that looked like peace. Got your request, he said, setting the box on the counter. Heirloom tomatoes, 3 varieties. The farmer said they're perfect. You're perfect. I'm a felon working in a kitchen for minimum wage. Still perfect. Lucien smiled and kissed her forehead. Service starts in an hour. You ready? Always. That night, as the dining room filled with guests and the kitchen exploded into controlled chaos, Serena caught Lucien's reflection in the polished steel of her station. He was watching her cook, the same way he had that first night at Bella Rosa. But this time, there was no manipulation, no revenge, no agenda, just love, pure and simple and earned through blood and fire and the stubborn refusal to let darkness win. Serena turned and met his eyes across the kitchen. He smiled. She smiled back. And in that moment, surrounded by the sounds of sizzling pans and shouted orders and the beautiful chaos of a kitchen in full flight, Serena Vale finally understood what it meant to be free. Not free from the past, but free to build something better in spite of it. Free to love someone who'd seen her at her worst and chosen to stay. Free to forgive and be forgiven, and wake up every morning knowing that the choices you made today mattered more than the mistakes you made yesterday. The first ticket of the night came through. Order in, table 7, 2 ossobuco. Serena grabbed her tongs and got to work. And in the dining room, at table 7, a couple sat holding hands and watching the open kitchen with the kind of quiet wonder that came from witnessing something extraordinary. They didn't know the chef's story, didn't know about the violence and betrayal and pain that had led to this moment. All they knew was that the food was exceptional, and sometimes that was enough. Sometimes the act of creating something beautiful, of taking broken pieces and turning them into art, was the only revenge that mattered, not against enemies, but against the darkness that tried to convince you that survival was the same as living. Serena plated the osobuco with hands that no longer shook. Lucien carried the dishes out himself, setting them down gently in front of the guests. "Enjoy," he said, and as he walked back to the kitchen, he caught Serena's eye one more time. She mouthed 3 words. "I love you." He mouthed them back. Outside, the city moved on. People lived and died and struggled and survived. Empires rose and fell. Violence begat violence begat violence. But inside Ilaria, named for a woman who'd tried to escape, and a future that refused to be defined by the past, 2 people who'd been forged in fire stood side by side and chose, every single day, to keep building. Together, the way it was always meant to be. The end. Author's reflection. This is a story about what we inherit and what we choose. Serena inherited debt and desperation. Lucien inherited rage and revenge. Both were shaped by sins that weren't theirs, by parents who made terrible choices in terrible circumstances and left their children to carry the weight. But inheritance isn't destiny. Somewhere in the wreckage of manipulation and violence and betrayal, 2 broken people found each other. And instead of letting their trauma define them, they chose to build something new. Not perfect, not unmarked by the past, but theirs. Real love isn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's about showing up every day and choosing each other, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. It's about forgiveness, not because the person who hurt you deserves it, but because you deserve to stop carrying the weight. It's about understanding that survival is necessary, but it's not enough. That at some point, you have to decide whether you're going to let fear dictate your life or whether you're going to risk everything for the chance to actually live. Serena and Lucien could have run, could have disappeared into witness protection and spent the rest of their lives looking over their shoulders. Instead, they stood their ground. They testified. They exposed the truth. They burned down an empire and walked through the ashes to get to the other side. And yes, they paid for it. In blood and fear and years apart. But they survived. And on the other side of survival, they found something better. Not a fairy tale ending where everything is perfect, but a real ending where 2 flawed, damaged people get to wake up every morning and choose each other again. That's the victory. Not revenge, not justice, but the simple, profound act of building a life worth living in spite of everything that tried to destroy you. This story is for anyone who's ever felt trapped by their circumstances, who's ever believed that their past defined their future, who's ever thought that the darkness was too strong to fight. It's not. You are stronger than you know, and you deserve more than just survival. You deserve to live.